Hello, and welcome to the weekly podcast of the Community Praise Center, Alexandria, Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're glad you decided to join us today by downloading and listening to this week's featured message. We pray that you allow God to teach and inspire you while you listen. Delivering this week's message is Community Praise Center's Senior Pastor, Henry Wright.
Modern-day believers, but we're retracing the steps of those who journeyed long before us. We're following the feasts. How many feasts? 6 that took place every year, and then 1 every 50 years. You're right, 7 feasts. And we've learned that these feasts were a liturgy of what? A liturgy of what? A liturgy of what? God's acts of salvation. Every year they reviewed God's acts of salvation. Passover, unleavened bread, Pentecost, blowing of trumpets, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Jubilee. These are the feasts. And I've given them designations which are pretty much arbitrary on my part, but it gives us some feel for these feasts. I'm still with the Passover. I can't get past the Passover. And my subject today is saved to serve. I actually wrestled back and forth all week. There's also another title, released to worship, whichever one you like. Our elder read for us out of the book of Exodus, the 2nd chapter. Beautiful passage. While in Egypt, Kenneth, that passage, the Bible says the Lord heard their groaning. Forgive me if I just want to dwell there for a moment. When I'm in my Egypt, the Lord does what? Hears my cry. Come on, somebody. That is sweet to hear. And found, Brother Clarkson, their cry irresistible. Aren't you glad this Sabbath that your cry is irresistible to God? Maybe somebody could say amen. Heard their cry and could not ignore, hallelujah, their misery in Egypt. But Elder Brown, Elder and Mrs. Ed Brown, we were students together at Oakwood. He's going to be baptizing his granddaughter in a few. I hope he can hold his seat till he baptizes his granddaughter. It's Earl's dad. What we may be missing is the reason why God called them out. It may not be as apparent as you might think. And so we have several texts. Turn to the book of Exodus that I want us to read that kind of set the tone for today's message. Because, well, just read with me. Exodus 3, starting in verse 7, and the Lord said, I have surely seen, I love these texts, the oppression of my people who are in Egypt. And I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrow. Isn't that something, Larry? How can you sit there so calm? God is saying that what you're going through, and the word I know is from the Hebrew word that means I experience. I'm suffering with you. When you cry, I cry. When you ache, I ache. I am not distant way up there in heaven somewhere. I'm involved in your struggle. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from the land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, all these ites. Verse 9, and therefore I behold the cry of the children of Israel has come to me. They're not important folk. They're just the ites. I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Now, this is bothersome, because he's saying, while you're in misery, I've seen it. And I know that kind of bothers you, because you're saying, where is God? No, he sees it. But I also read the text that said he feels it.
Yes, sir. All right.
He feels it. You see, God is amazing. God's capacity. Have you ever thought about the fact that when we are saved into God's kingdom, that he wipes all tears from our eyes? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the fact that we will then forget all those who are not saved? But have you thought about the fact that God cannot forget? So he spends eternity in pain for those who are not saved. God's feelings never shut off. Oh, shoot. And so he's saying, I see it. Now look at verse 10. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Then look at verse 12. He said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, when you have brought the people out of Egypt, what? Why is he bringing them out? Why is he bringing them out? Saved to serve. Exodus 5:1. Exodus 5:1. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. Come out and serve, and come out and worship. It's hard to worship the Lord in Egypt. Let me sit over here, because when you're surrounded by the atmosphere of Egypt, it's hard to really serve the Lord. You have to leave Egypt behind if you're going to worship. Exodus 6 and 7. Therefore say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will rescue you from their... I just love these words. I will bring you out. I will rescue you from their bondage, and I will redeem you. Look at those words. And with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I mean, these pictures are just awesome. And when you read the story of the plague, you can just see God's hand outstretched, and there's muscles in his arm. He's protecting his people as he delivers them. And then look at verse 7. And I will take you as my people. These are warm words, y'all. I will be your God. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. He's lifting you from burdens. He's lifting you from burdens. But I read a text that says, come unto me, all ye that labor, and I will give you rest. Take my and learn of me, for my and my. So you shift from one burden to another. You're not with me yet. 7:16. And you shall say to him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has sent me to you, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. But indeed, until now, you would not hear. Now, every time the word serve appears, Toby, in the NKJV or in the King James Version, KJV, every time the word serve appears, in the NIV, it's worship. It's worship. See, the main function of the wilderness journey, Allison Daly, is to learn to worship. Now, that suggests to me, Deborah Sanford, that worship being talked about here is more than going to church. It's suggesting to me that the worship you're being called to is some kind of daily experience, an encounter with God. I'm getting the idea that worship is more than being in a service, that worship has something to do with an attitude I carry about God while I'm in the wilderness. I got to learn to worship in the wilderness. I've left one burden. I'm now picking up God's burden. And of course, the biggest burden I carry is me. Exodus 8:1. Exodus 8:1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go that they may serve me. There it is again in verse 21. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you, so forth and so on, and blah, blah, blah. All right. Then Exodus 9, verse 1. Then said the Lord to Moses, go to Pharaoh and tell him, thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go that they may. By the way, there are 10 plagues, right? And 10 times he says, let them go that they may serve me. Now, get the connection. See, the Bible is deep. Get the connection. All the plagues were against false gods. So each time he sends a plague against a god, he says, give up that god and come and serve the true God. See, give up your money and come and serve the true God. Give up your quest for the new car and come and serve the true God. See, he sends plagues against your gods so that you can learn to worship the true God. That's why your bank account did not grow last year like you thought. That was your God, and he sent a plague against it. That's why your house got close to being taken from you. He sent a plague against it that you might worship the true God who builds a mansion that'll never wear out. I got to calm down now because I'm just getting started here. Got a whole lot of notes today. So every time there's a plague against one of these Egyptian gods, God says, come on our ways now. Worship me. See, some of the problems in your life are plagues against your gods. I don't want you to miss that, Michelle Baker. Some of this stuff is plagues against your gods so that you can see the true God. Did you get that? Don't lose that. Now, last week in my sermon, Help Down My Unbelief, I'm teaching again. I dealt with the mental and emotional struggle to believe in freedom when you've been a slave all your life. Remember that? That was basically last week's sermon. And I made the point that we are slaves to generational weaknesses and anger and envy and insecurity, low self-esteem, poor diet, polluted environment, war, greed, immorality, dishonesty, disrespect, self-worship, arrogance. We're enslaved. And all these weaknesses, I said, have led to a problem. That is, we have trouble believing that we can be delivered. And then I made a big issue last week of the thought that the Hebrew slaves were delivered by God into the wilderness. Now, Pastor keeps coming there, Claude, because I want to make sure you have this. You are saved and then put in the wilderness. And the reason why the pastor keeps stressing that is because it's important to me that the members of my church understand that you are now in the wilderness. And in the wilderness are scorpions, cold weather at night, come on, too much heat in the day. In the wilderness is lack of water. In the wilderness, you see, so you're saved to serve, released to worship. But now let me lay the big one on you. The big one on you. The Apostle Paul catches the meaning of the Christian walk. Let me read to you what he says in Romans 6:16 through 18. But I'm taking this out of the NIV. Now listen. Don't you know that when you offer yourselves to someone to obey them as slaves, you are slaves to the one you obey. Whether slaves to sin, which leads to death, or a slave to obedience, which leads to righteousness. Either way, you are a. But thanks be to God, he continues in the NIV, though you used to be slaves to sin, you wholeheartedly obeyed the form of teaching to which you were entrusted. Now the capstone. You have been set free from sin and have become not just delivered from Egypt to the wilderness, but delivered from slavery to slavery. See, the problem in Egypt, Dr. Watkins, was not that they were in slavery. The problem in Egypt, it was who was the master. You see it, Jerry? You're going to be delivered, but you're still going to be a slave. But now, the master has changed. The old master in Egypt was using you up and beating you down. This new master will bring the best out of you, but in both cases, you must be disciplined to be delivered. So the issue about the Passover was not going from slavery to freedom. The issue of the Passover, Harold Sanford, is who's going to be the boss? Egypt or God? I declare you today, you're not free. You don't know how to be free. So God just changed your master so that your service would be productive. Are you with your pastor? You see, the Passover set the Jews free only for them to discover they didn't know how to be free. See, you don't know how to be free. You are a professional messer-upper. How many of you know we'll make a mess of it if we get a chance? Go on, get your hand up. You know we'll make a mess of it. God can't give you, Melvin, control. How's God going to give you control? You can't even control your mouth. So the issue here is getting you out of Egypt so you can be under the right master, but slave you still going to be. Is this all right, Wash? See, you've got to see this, or I can't preach these sermons for the rest of the year unless you get this basic principle. God let him out, but then all he really did was just change masters. So he didn't say it to Pharaoh, but what he really was saying is, let them free Pharaoh so I can be their boss. They're going to be slaves. And so the revelation of this truth was tucked in the first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. See, here's the problem with living in Egypt. It's the same problem we black folks had for 400 years under our white masters. Here's the problem. When you are under a master and they got all the power and all the money and the finest houses and the best education, what happens to the slave? You want to be like the master. Don't sit there all... We went through it, didn't we? Yeah. Want to have hair like him? Come on, y'all. Don't sit there all pious. Straightening the hair. Our hair ain't straight. Putting light powder on our dark skin. Come on, y'all. Let's just tell it like it is. We got caught up trying to be like the master, but the new master says, if any man be in Christ, he must be a new creature. See, being like the old master will get you in trouble. Being like the master will get you in glory. Come on, somebody. So the Israelites in Egypt, they wanted the Egyptian lifestyle. They wanted the Egyptian way of dressing. Some of us are still dressing like Egyptians. Oh, pastor came ready today. Didn't he come ready today? Want to dress like them, want to eat like them, want to walk like them, want to be like them. God had no problem getting the Israelites out of Egypt. His problem was getting Egypt out of the Israelites. Let me get them out of here. Their minds are blown. They think that the highest attainment in life is to be like the Egyptians. I got to show them that the most important attainment in life is to be like God. I sent a model. I sent somebody for them to follow. Jesus is my yardstick. But slavery did more than that. It messed up their minds about God. See, when you are a slave to sin in your guilt, when you are a slave to sin in your guilt, you can't conceive of a merciful, forgiving, and grace-filled God. Be honest, when you're doing wrong, God looks hard, doesn't he? Because you know what he ought to do, don't you? Now, come on, y'all. While you're driving home from the club, you know lightning bolts ought to come down from heaven. Strike you. Now you know that, don't you? And you kind of drive, looking over your shoulder, seeing if anybody can, yeah? Yeah, we know, and so in those moments of deep guilt, it's hard for us to picture God. Ask Moses. God said, speak to the rock. And he hit it, didn't he? But Moses found out that the God who can keep you out of earthly paradise because you hit when you should have spoken is the same God who can skip over earthly paradise and take you straight into the glory of heaven. Did he not appear on the Mount of Transfiguration? I believe by that time Moses said, I don't mind missing Canaan. I done found the Canaan that never wears out. Our life in slavery causes us to confuse. Our life in slavery causes us to confuse our view of God. He calls you out to serve him, to know him. I mean, look at the things they faced when they left Egypt. They had no idea that they were serving a God that could control the sea. Can't you imagine the shock, Carlson? They're on the edge of the sea. Waters are lapping. They don't have no, see, some of us, we have no idea of the power of God. Cry would to God. Oh, no. I like the way, Edgar G. Robinson does it in Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments. Were there no gods and were there no graves in Egypt? I can sing it, yeah. Were there no graves in Egypt? He plays that part, yes, sir. Oh, I got that movie. Were there no graves in Egypt? I can say a little short guy. Yeah. We act like God has no ability. They had no idea. They had no idea they were messing with a God who not only could split the Red Sea, but he made the world that was holding the Red Sea. They had no idea that they had a God who could bring water out of a rock. They had no idea they were serving a God who could rain bread from heaven, turn the skies into Safeway. They had no idea. My point is, so listen to me. He had to get them out of Egypt so they could get to know Dwayne God. You got to get your brain out of Egypt so you can learn God. He's able. He's powerful. He's mighty. He's consistent. He's everywhere. He's on time. That's the God you serve. Get your brain out of Egypt. worrying about whether you're going to have the money to buy the latest styles. I think sometimes some of the clothes we put on, I don't know why mine is on that today, but it is. I really think sometimes the guardian angels that are assigned to us, they have to be held back from saying, whispered in our ear, you look ridiculous. And some of our guardian angels, they're embarrassed. And I can hear them saying, I got to go out with she looks ridiculous. Watch me. Watch me. Our problem is, watch me. See, we've become so influenced by Egypt, we think we're not in style unless we look like Egypt. He had to get them out, folks. He got to get them out of Egypt. Not to be free. They didn't have enough sense to be free, but to be slaves to the God who would free them from themselves. They didn't know him. And so in Exodus 19, Exodus 19, look, 9 through 13. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, I come to you in the thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. So Moses told the words of the people to the Lord. Verse 10, then the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes. See, they have no idea how holy God is. Let them be ready, verse 11, for the third day. For on the third day, the Lord will come down into Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. My Lord, you shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, take heed to yourselves that ye do not go up to the mountain or touch its base. When God's toe touched the top of the mountain, no human could touch the bottom. He gets them out to free them from evil, the Egyptian mentality, and then he's got to teach them who God is. I not only split the Red Sea, I not only rain down bread, I not only bring water from rocks, but I'm so holy that if I touch something, you can't touch what I touch. He's on the top of the mountain. They can't touch the bottom. The attitudes we have sometime, Andre, when we come to God's Mount Sinai, that's the church. And the unholy attitudes and words and practices and conversations that we bring into God's holy mountain. But I'm not done reading. Verse 13. Not a hand shall touch him. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. Not a hand shall touch him. He shall be surely stoned and shot with an arrow. With a man or beast he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come near the mountain. Wow. Now look at Exodus 20, verses 19 through 21. Exodus 20, 19 through 21. He's given the law. Then he says, then they said to Moses. Now, Maranduri, when God came down to that mountain, the whole mountain caught on fire. Earth trembled. They had never seen anything like that before in their life. And I'll be honest with you. I really think, Janika, sometimes if God would just one time in our life reveal his awesomeness to us, we would never be the same. We could not conceive. You know, when you were worshiping him, Dwayne, with your voice and his holiness and his majesty, if God just one time pulled back the veil and you saw who God was, you would never be the same. Your language would change. You would walk on your tiptoes. The thought of God would be so holy to you that you would drop to your knees. Every time God's name passed through your brain, you would recognize here is a God. And so the people said to Moses after that great display, you speak with us. I'm reading the Bible. You speak with us, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. Now, I know that seems exaggerated, but I wish sometimes that we would have an experience and would let it. God is awesome. I've heard some people sometimes say, Pastor, if I could just hear God's voice. That's a voice that creates worlds. They didn't know the difference between reverence for God and fear of God. To fear him is to mistrust his love. To reverence him is to recognize his holiness. A slave to sin cannot discern the difference. A slave to God embraces the difference. And so you have all these passages in the Bible, Cliff, where God calls us to get to know him. Let's just try a couple of them. Jeremiah 9:24. Jeremiah 9 and verse 24. I've got 4, but we'll just read 2. 9:24. But let him who glory in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, exercising loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these I delight, says the Lord. Hosea 6 and verse 3. The Bible is full of these texts calling us to know the Lord. Hosea 6:3, let us pursue the knowledge of the Lord. His going forth is established as the morning. He will come to us like the rain, like the latter and former rain to the earth. God's call from Egypt, let's wrap this up now, is a call to change priorities. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Oh, I love you so much. I'm going to ask you a question. How much of Egypt are you still bringing to CPC? See, God's call from Egypt is a call to change priorities. The ways of the Egyptian masters had become alluring to the Israelites. How can you worship the Lord when your brain is blinded by the priorities of the earth? So you spend all week listening to the music of Egypt. And you're going to suddenly come to CPC on Sabbath and enjoy the music of the wilderness. You spend all week watching the allurements of Egypt. The DVDs and the movies and the games of Egypt, and then you're going to come and try to lock in for maybe an hour or two. And that's why, Bernard, over and over again, every time they ran into a crisis in Egypt, you can read it, they would say, would to God we were back in Egypt. The fact is they never left. Their bodies were in the wilderness. Their hearts were in Egypt. They never left. We missed the leeks and the onions. We missed the ways of Egypt. You can't fool God by coming here for a couple of hours and acting pious and singing hymns when your brain is full of music that's dirty and awful and polluting and demeaning to men and women. Suddenly you're going to turn the channel and you're going to be righteous for a couple of hours. No. Egypt is still here, so you sit there and the hymns are boring. And unless the temple's a certain way, you can't. You want the church to be entertaining. Why? You become polluted with the entertainment of Egypt and you cannot enjoy the worship of God. I got to get them out of Egypt, but my problem is, once I got them out, they had too much Egypt in them. Can't you imagine, Merari, how it broke God's heart? He had subdued the Egyptians with a mighty hand. They had seen these things. I still, my brother, try to picture what it was like to walk through the Red Sea on dry land with walls of water as high as 5-story buildings on each side. Got to the other shore, they began to sing and praise God. They'd seen the part. To drink water from a rock. And having seen these things, then in the crisis they say, would to God. Brother Brown, can you hear him? Would to God we were back in Egypt. Can't you see Jesus' face just fall? What? Yes, Brother Brown. And they want that more than they want to be with God. God is insulted. He's hurt, and he's standing there. And at one time he said to Moses, look, forget about him. I'll make you my nation. But God was testing Moses. Because see, Moses had been revealed to God, and God had said, hey, I'm the God of justice and mercy and graciousness, forgiving iniquity. And Moses said, no, God, you can't do that. The other nations will say you couldn't handle it. But God didn't really, he wanted Moses to understand how good and merciful I am. I want you to declare to them my character. God needs somebody in this church in your crisis to declare, I know in whom I believe, and I know he's able to keep that which I've given. He needs somebody to cry out, there's a God in Israel. If my house is foreclosed on, there's a God in Israel. If my child doesn't recover from the fever, I know there's a God in Israel. The marriage may be falling apart, but I know there's a God in Israel. He needs us to worship him. I said he needs us to worship him. In the crisis, worship him. In the moment, worship him. Declare him. He needs to hear us say, God is able. Worshiping the Lord is a daily attitude of trust on your wilderness journey. Worshiping the Lord is knowing. Listen to me. Worshiping the Lord is knowing that if rod or water must come from a rock, it will. Come on, y'all. Worshiping the Lord means if bread must come from the sky, God will send it. Get a basket. Worshiping the Lord is believing that he's able to do anything. Folk, I experience it every time I preach the word. And the last test on my lungs now only open about 45%. These air passages only open, I never have 50% air power. Never my lungs open even 50%. But I know. I said, I know him. He's able, powerful, healing. If I have to preach with no lungs, he'll make me a freak, and I'll preach with no lungs. Why? Because if you learn to worship the Lord, He'll turn you into a miracle of His grace and power. Our problem is we're so filled up with Egypt, there's no room for God to work in our lives. There's only one choice today. The choice is not whether you're going to be free. The choice is who you'll serve. I'm in my favorite text in the Bible. Deuteronomy 30 and verse 19. I set before you life and death. And then, because we're so stupid, the next sentence says, choose life. In case you ain't figured it out yet, death is a downer. Grab a hold of life. Choose it today. And then I'm in Joshua 24, 14 and 15. Choose ye this day whom you will serve. If God be God, serve Him. If Baal, serve him. But stop trying to be Egypt and Canaan at the same time. And in 1 Kings 18:21, if you ain't got it yet, how long halt ye between two opinions? If God be God, come on, Baker, serve Him. You've not been brought out of Egypt to be free. You're brought out of Egypt to be a slave to God.
Thank you for joining us for this week's message from Community Praise Center Alexandria, Seventh-day Adventist Church. If you have any questions about the message or would like to contact us with any prayer requests, please visit us at www.cpcsda.org and use the prayer request tool at the top of the page. We invite you to share this message with someone else and look forward to you joining us again next week. We pray that you experience the presence of God always with you.